So welcome back to Yerushalmi Shekalim. Now we're up to Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Okay, we're learning here about someone who uses a shekel out of Maser Sheni money. Well, you got to eat an equivalent food in Yerushalayim with like the laws of Maser Sheni. You fulfilled your duty, but you got to eat an equivalent food. Because if it says Achbachar, a firstborn, Asher Yivuk Hal Hashem B'Behema, which is like a firstborn in an animal, so you should not make it holy. What does that mean? Kol Shu Kodesh. It means something which is already holy. Ein Kedusha Chal Alav. You can't have another holiness on it. So money of Maser Sheni's got Kedusha. Maser Shekel can't apply on that. Okay, so what do you do then? This one who put it in the shekels of Maser Sheni money, put it with all the shekels. So this is what he does. Maybe a selah shel chulin. You bring another half a selah of chulin. But when he's saying, "Mois Maser Sheni that Maser Sheni money, wherever it is, should be redeemed. Al selah zu onto this coin." But also, on that chulin, that half now which was chulin, it's fastened to Shem Maser Sheni. Now has a status of Maser Sheni on it. The hasha and the original, the first coin that you put in the box, now no longer has Maser Sheni on it. Maser Shekalim that can have the kedusha of Maser Shekel. Okay. Hamachanes ma'os. So what is this? A person is gathering his small coins in his pocket, bit by bit. And he says he's starting to gather them. He says, I'm gathering this money for my Machzis HaShekel. And the month of Adar comes, and he finds that actually he's gathered a bit too much. What does he do with the extra money? He says, you know what? The extra money, put it into an adaba. The money is there for extra oil offerings to bring on the Mizbeach when there's nothing else on the Mizbeach. Although it was making it hekdesh by mistake, because you didn't have intention to gather it for the shekel, only what you thought, you didn't have the fit amount, but it still has holiness because hekdesh is chal even by mistake. Beis Hillel said no. The remainder is chulin, right? Because you didn't have intention only to make holy half a shekel. Anything beyond that is not hekdesh. If at the time when you started gathering, you're saying Sha'avi mehen shekli, I will bring my shekel from this money, then Shavin, then everyone agrees that anything above and beyond, anything beyond the limit is definitely chulin. Because if you said clearly, if there's more, then I'm keeping the rest, right? So there we are. They do discuss actually. The Chachma Shlomo asked on the Beis Yosef, they bring that if a person put too much oil in the Hanukkah candles, then the din is all the oil is set aside for the mitzvah, even if you end up with too much oil, more than the lighting requirement time, yeah? Now, why is any difference from the Shekalim here, where the extra is chulim? And they ask on the Taz, they don't ask this from Mishnah later on, Moisar, Meis, and Moisar, they all ask on that. Okay. So let's carry on. Someone who did an Aveira, b'shoigeg, and he has to bring a carbon chatas. Again, he gathers money to bring a chatas. And as he gathers it, he says, Eile lechatasi, this is the money for my chatas offering. And then he goes to buy the animal, and he finds, actually, I don't need all this money. Shavin shambais and nidava. Everyone agrees the leftover is nidava, and you buy oil offerings. But if he said, Sha'avi mehen chatasi, I will bring my chatas from this money, then Shavin, everyone agrees, shambais and leftovers is chulin. Rav Shimon, Ma ben shkalim lechatas. What is the difference between shkalim and chatas? Why is it with shkalim the leftovers are chulin and with chatas leftovers is nidava? Ella, shkalim yesh lahem kitzvah. There is a finite amount. Right, you mustn't give too much, not give too little. And the chatas, however, ain't like kitzvah. There's no limit. There's no maximum limit how much a chatas offering could be. Right. So therefore, some spend a lot, some spend a little. So we intended to gather and make holy all the money you had. Yeah. Rabbi Yehuda said, no, there's no limit for shkalim. When they went out from exile from Babel in time of Ezra, now the coin that was used, the Persian coin, was called darkon, which was worth 2 shkalim of the Torah. And they would give half of it, which is a whole shekel, to the Beis Mikdash. That was their mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel. They gave half of the coin which was prevalent at that time. After a while, when the Persian kingdom fell down, it changed. And the coin which was commonly used was the selah, which is a shekel of the Torah. and they gave half to the Beis Mikdash. So they're now giving the same old half shekel they've always given in the past. Then the coinage changed again, and it became the teba, which is like half a shekel of the Torah, the normal coin. So they wanted to give half of that, bikesh lishkol dinrin, which is half a teba. They thought just like the coin now, which is used from the shekel, is from the Torah, we should give half of that. And it's like a smaller amount than the shekel of the Torah, just give half. Chachamim were not happy with that. They said, no, if you're going to give you've got to give a whole teva. You cannot give less than the half shekel of the Torah. So even the chayav of machzis hashekel, there's no fixed amount. Sometimes the shekels are big, sometimes they're small, and you give half the coin which applies at that time. Amar of Shimon, which was an Avbi Kain, Yad Kulam Shabbat. Although the chiyuv of giving to Mikdash changes from time to time, but whenever everyone gives the same amount for machzis hashekel, we imagine that you don't want to give more than what everyone gives. If you gather more, it's a mistake. Aval chatas, but with a chatas offering, each one brings a chatas as he wishes. Zeh may be besela, zeh may be b'shtayim. This one spends this amount, this one spends. Zeh may be shalish, this one spends this amount. So therefore, we imagine to be magdish all the money that is gathered, you have to give whatever's left for an adava, for a free will offering. But people always intended to give different amounts. Okay. This idea of when they went from the Golos, they take darkainos. So Rambam learns the beginning of the Second Temple, the coinage was Malchus Madai. The darkon, as we said, was 2 selaim. They gave half of that, which is a selah. Rivan says this as well. There weren't so many people. Some say there weren't so many people. The half a shekel wasn't enough, so they paid double because of that, because there weren't so many people. Okay. Some apply some dinim from this to the machzis hashekel, which applies before Purim, which is the zeichel the machzis hashekel they used to give when the Beis Mikdash was around. Okay, remember the Ramah writes they give half a shekel of half a coin of what is in that place. That's learned from this Persian custom that they had. Okay. Where are we up to? Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Is that where are we up to? Sorry.
Gemara.
The Gemara. Yes. Where is the Gemara? I've lost it. 1 minute. Yehuda Omer. Is that where we are? Sorry, where so Harav Shimon. Yeah, there may be Shnayim, there may be Shosh. We did that, right? Hamachanes, is that where you are? Yeah. So one's gathering money, he says, this is for my shekel. Beis Shammai said the extra is Nadaba, Beis Hillel said the extra is Cholim. Rabbi Yosef Sheb Rabbi Lazar, my pligim, what they arguing, but Machanes Pred. When you're gathering coins bit by bit, you didn't intend to do more than half a shekel. So anything else is Batos, and it's not Hegdish. That's Beis Hillel. If you said, look, this should be for my shekel, everyone agrees the leftovers is for Nadaba. He said no, they're arguing when you gather bit by bit. And then Beis Shammai said everything's holy. If you said these for my shekel, everyone will agree it's chulin. You know you can't give more than half a shekel. So you never intended to give hekdesh any more than what you had to give. Masnisa Messiah. Sorry for giving the wrong address, yeah? Like I said number 4, but yeah. Masnisa Messiah. The Mishnah supports Rabbibi. But it says someone who says these are for my shekel, everyone holds the leftovers are chulin. The Tanam will learn that Mishnah, Amr of Shimon. Ma ben shekalim, the chatos. What's the difference? Look, I give a shekel, I give a bit extra. We say, it's nothing. And chatos, the extra chatos money, that's holy money. What's the difference? Because Sheikh Chatos becomes an adava, and with chulin it's not. And the shashkalim yesh lahem kitzvah. The shekel, there's a finite amount you have to give. Well, the chatos ain't no kitzvah. When you're bringing in carbon, there's no fixed amount how much you're going to give. Some spend more, some spend less. Now Chizkiah takes on. The Rosh Shimon said his words are according to everyone, so it comes out that his words are going on the situation where Beis Shammai Beis Hillel agree. So he says, "Man Akiyam." And what are we talking about here? Im ba'omer. If you're going to tell me he's talking about a case where a person said he's gathering his money bit by bit, and as he's gathering it, I'm going to bring my shekel from this. Then everyone agrees, any leftover money, Shammai Sachulin, doesn't become holy. And if he said, I'm gathering it, I'm going to bring my chatos offering from this, Kol Haloshon, then everyone agrees, Shambai Chulin, that the leftovers is Chulin. As we said, if you're going to say, I'm going to bring from this, then obviously you didn't intend to make the whole thing holy, only the bit that you needed for what you needed for that purpose. So Shimon is going to explain the reason between leftover chatas money and leftover shkalim money, but it can't be in these situations. So what are we talking about? He said, look, these are for my shekel. And then he's filling out his hand, he's collecting his coins, he doesn't count them. He says, these are for my shekel. And then chatas and shekel are different. So shkalim has a fixed amount from the Torah. Therefore, most of any leftover extra money is not holy. Chatas says no fixed amount for a sacrifice. Therefore, most of the leftovers that does become holy and is used for other animals. What will Rabbi Yosef do? He holds, if someone says, this is for my shekel, everyone agrees the leftover is nadaba. How does he understand with Shimon? He explains it, but where you're gathering coins bit by bit, to Beis Hillel. And that's like Beis Hillel's view. Now, Beis Hillel distinguish if you gathered them for half a shekel, or if you gathered it for chatas. If you gathered it for half a shekel, he said the leftover is chulin. If you gather it for a chatas offering, the leftovers is nadaba. But we learned in the Mishnah, Moisa shkalim chulin. Leftover money from shkalim is not holy, but chatas al-asham is nadaba. The Mishnah just says, it sounds like everyone holds of this. So it must be, let's say you're gathering the money, and you said, this is for my shekel, and that's like Rabbibi, that everyone should say it's chulin. So he says, no. The Mishnah is talking about a case, but Mechanis Pred. You're gathering coins bit by bit, Uka Beis Hillel, and it's according to Beis Hillel who hold in this situation. So you're gathering for the shekel, you've got too much money, the leftovers afterwards is not holy. Okay. Now one thing is clear. Hamafrish shikla, if you separate your shekel, the sava shulchav, you think you have to pay it. Oh, I haven't paid it yet. V'nimsa she'enachav, but it turned out you'd already paid it. Right? Like Hadash, that second coin is not holy. That was by mistake. It doesn't become holy by mistake. What happens if you separate two in one go? The sava shulchav, you thought you'll have two. V'nimsa she'enachav, oh, you only have one. Right? Then Oisa shekel ma'adavle, how do you treat the sheni? How do you treat the second one? Yeah? Is it like hekdesh b'tas, it's not holy? Or since at the end of the day, look, you do have to pay something, but you separated more than you need to, maybe not. We learn from the following. You separate your chatas offering, and you thought you have to bring a chatas. You think you've done something wrong? No, you don't have to bring the sacrifice. The animal's not holy. It was hekdesh made holy by mistake. You separated two animals. You thought you have two liabilities for an animal offering. You only have one. The second animal, what do we do with it? Ella, he says, you know what? It must be Kedusha Roya. You know what? Get it pasturing until a blemish comes along. We can't offer it up. And then we'll sell it and we'll use the money for other donation offerings. So we should say the same thing here. If you separate two shkalim and you only have one, the extra one should go into the free will gesture of donations. Now, how are you saying with shkalim, these are for nadava? I mean, the second one, you're going to fall it into nadava? I mean, how can you compare shkalim to chatas? They're very different. We said if you gather money bit by bit, you said these are for my shekel, and you have extra money, it's not holy, the extra money, according to Beis Hillel at least. If you do that with chatas, the extra money is used for other offerings. So we should also therefore make a difference if you separated two and it turned out you only have one. Although we said with chatas the money of the second one is a donation, and with shkalim it's not. But shkalim is not. The sheni, the second one is chulin. So, if you separated two and it turned out you only need one, it shouldn't be holy at all, the second one. Okay. Then Rabbi Yehuda said, even shkalim don't have really a fixed amount. Why is that? We said the Jewish people didn't always give half a shekel. When they went through the Persian exile, they gave a different coin, a darkened coin, right, which was double the amount. And then they went to Tivim, a different amount. Darkonos are dinrin, they're gold dinars. They started giving slime kishmon like the proper normal value. And eventually the coinage changed, and Chazal Ishkal Tivin, they gave smaller value coins because that was the current staple coinage in the system. Palge Silin, which are like half of that.
What is it with our coins along with the dragons? Is that just a Hebrew word?
There is a Mishnah in Avodah Zarah which refers to that. Dar Cohen, I think so. Dar Cohen. It's like they used to have kalim with images of dragons on them. Anyway, nowadays it's a passport, right? Chazra lishkal tivin. So they wanted to give the smaller coins because that was the new coinage system. Palge Sim, so they wanted to give half of that, but that's less than the Torah value. Big Shalishkal Dinrin, they wanted to give Dinrin, which is krotim, which is like quarter slime. So they wanted to give half the normal value. And the Chacham said, no, you can't do that. Min Hador, from the following. It says in the book of Nehemiah, we fixed the mitzvahs that we're all going to give, we're all going to donate. Now it says, a third of a shekel in the year to serve Lavadas Beit Elokeinu. For the lechem, for the 12 loaves, etc. on the shulchan every week, in the Mishkan, in the Beis Mikdash, the Tamid offering, the other offerings. It says, Shlishis HaShekel is a shlish of this bigger coin, the darker coin, which was the coinage at that time. So you see that the basin of Ezra and Nehemiah fixed that you cannot give less than at least the mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel. You can't give less than that. Rav Chilkiah b'shem Rav Acha, Mikan shesarach adam l'shalosh shekla. He says, you know what? When you give money to the poor, at least give 1 shekel shalosh pa'amim b'shana 3 times a year, so 3 shekels a year. And Mikan, you tell that to the fundraisers, yeah? 3 shekels a year. And Mikan, and also we learn she'ema trichin ala tzibur yosem shalosh pa'amim b'shana. We don't ask the tzibur to give more than 3 times a year, right? So if you know any charity people who do fundraisers for various institutions, then this is what we're told. From this passage we have a source, the Shalosh Sa'im, that which we learned, the boxes could hold 3 sar each box. And we have a source, the Shalosh Kupos. We learned that each time they sort of drained the coinage out of the box, and they would take from the 3 boxes of 3 sar, there were 3 acts of separation in the year to take the coins out of the containers. Okay? It says, you shall give anyone who passes by. This is in the time of the Mishkan, right? And they gave half a shekel, the shekel HaKodesh. Rabbi Yehuda and Nehemiah. Chad Amar once said, this was the time of the sockets, so the sockets for the Mishkan. Chad Amar they sinned with the golden calf midday. Therefore the Torah said, Yidnu Machzis HaShekel, give half a shekel to the Beis Mikdash to be a forgiveness. For the Mishkan. The other one said, they sinned 6 hours of the day. Therefore, Yidnu Machzis HaShekel, they should give half a shekel to Avad Shito Garmasin. It is worth 6 small coins, which are called a garma. 6 small coins are worth half a shekel. So because they sinned at 6 hours of the day. And the other one said they sinned with the egel at the middle of the day. Okay? They're giving Machzis a half of the coin, and not to give less than the share of the Torah requirements. Okay. Rabbi Yeshua Nechemia, b'shem Yochanan Zaka, Levisha Abra Aseres Hadivros, because they went against the 10 Commandments. Therefore, one who agrees to idolatry as if he's denying the 10 Commandments. Therefore, each one should give to the Beis Mikdash every year as a forgiveness of Aseres Gera 10 Gera, which, as we said, which is the value of Machzis HaShekel. Shekel HaKodesh is 20 gera, so 10 gera is again half the shekel, and that's 10 gera. Another reason for giving half a shekel, Reb Rachia, Reb Levi, B'Shem Lakish, Lefi Shemachru, B'Chayra Shel Rachel, the brothers of Yaakov sold Yosef, who was the firstborn of Rachel, Be'esrim Kesef, for 20 pieces of silver. Therefore the Torah says, because everyone should redeem his son. The amount they redeem is 20 pieces of silver. Okay, 20 pieces of silver. The seller is 4 dinrin. 5 selaim, which the Torah mentioned, is worth 20 dinrin. And that's the 20 kesef that the brothers of Yosef took for selling Yosef. They sold B'chayra Shel Rachel, they sold Yosef Be'esrim kesef with 20 pieces of silver. Each one of them ended up getting teva, which is 2 dinrin. There were 10 of them. They got 20, so each one got 2. Each person should provide every year for his shekel teva, which is the value of that coin. Right? If they were punished for selling Yosef, and that's why they have to give money for the firstborn, now why is it that the tribe of Yosef have to give 5 Salaim to the tribe of Levi? What do they have to do? They weren't involved. He says the kavanah is, since they all agreed that the redemption of a person is 20 kesef, which is 5 silver coins, which is roughly around 100 grams. Therefore, the Shevet Levi will take 5 Salaim for Pidyon Aben. Yeah, that's how much they take. Okay.
Is that all those coins you got?
Yes, I've got some sets. Yeah, 100 grams of silver. All right, let's carry on. Halacha Dalet. Ma'isa Shekalim. So if you gather money for your half shekel and it turned out you had a bit extra, the extra is not holy, as we discussed in the previous Mishnah. If the Kohen Gadol gathered extra flour for his offering, actually, is it the Kohen Gadol, this one? A person's bringing for Korban Mincha that he's obligated. And Ma'isa Kinei Zavais, Zavin Kinei Zavais for Kinei Yolados. A person gathers money for bird offerings for a woman who's given birth, whatever, various other illnesses, etc., spiritual illnesses. And you end up with more money. Sin offerings and guilt offerings. Any extra money is used for donations on the base of Mikdashes, on the extra sacrifices that are brought. This is the rule. If it comes to buy a guilt offering, the leftovers is used for other offerings. If you gathered money for an Ayla offering, you bought an animal and you got extra over change, you should use that money for another Ayla offering. Ma'isa Mincha, you got extra money for Mincha offering, use it leMincha, for Mincha offering. Ma'isa Shlamim, leShlamim. Another Shlamim offering, you got extra money, use it for a Shlamim offering. Okay? Ma'isa HaPesach, you gathered money for Korban Pesach, for the Paschal lamb, and then you bought your animal and you got a bit of change. This Shlamim, use it for another Shlamim offering. Right? And you bring that as Shlamim. Don't leave the money for next year's Korban Pesach. No. Use the money for Shlamim offering. Okay. Now, of course, leftover Korban Pesach can end up being a Shlamim. It's got a din of a Shlamim. It needs the various dinim Chazav V'Shaik waving like a Shlamim. But in some ways, it's slightly different. Shlamim is eaten for 2 days and 1 night. Right? Korban Pesach can only be eaten that night. Yeah. So there are some differences. Okay. Ma'isa Pesach L'Shlamim. Ma'isa Nazirim. If a Nazir, a Nazirite, he gathered money for the poor Nazirim, they didn't have enough money. People bought korbanos, they needed. You have leftover money. Li Nazirim, you give it to a Nazir. My son Nazir is the Nadava. Any extra money, a Nazir who gathered money for himself, and he doesn't need any more, then that's the Dava. Use that for other offerings, donation offerings. Ma'isa Shekalim Lecholin. Rabbi Yosef, when I was in Babel, Shammai is called Rabbi Yehuda. I heard Rabbi Yehuda Shal Shmuel. He asked Shmuel, "If we shekel, person separated a shekel, amazing, he died. He's not given it. What do you do with that coin? Forgiveness. Shekel is a forgiveness. We don't have forgiveness for the dead. Amalei says, just give it for the donation. A Kohen Gadol has to bring the 10th of an ephah of flour every day. He's got leftovers. It's his extra ephah. He's got leftovers. What does he do with it? Take the money to the Dead Sea and destroy it. Rabbi Lazar, he said, give it to donations. Our Mishnah seems to argue Rabbi Yochanan. Ma'isa Shekalim, leftover money from Shekalim is Chulim. Ma'isa Sirsa Eifa, leftover Sirsa Eifa, Ma'isa Ginei Zavim, Zavim, Ginei Yards, various other sacrifices, Chatzos, Hasham is guilt offerings, Ma'isa Nadava, is on Nadava. So we're talking about the Sirsa Eifa, the flour offering of the Kohen Gadol, is Nadava. And that includes all obligatory flour offerings, including the Chavitin of the Kohen Gadol. So our Mishnah goes against Rabbi Yochanan, who said, take the extra to the Dead Sea. We're saying you don't have to take it to the Dead Sea. It becomes free will stuff. What's Rabbi Yochanan doing with it? Pasal explains it. So we're talking about the Asir Sa'efa of a sinner, not a Kohen Gadol, the sinner who did an Avera. He has to bring the means-tested carbon. Yeah, if he's not that rich, he brings a flour offering. And he was poor, he brings a flour offering, and that's what he has to bring. He's got extra money, it goes to Nadava. But the Kohen Gadol's Chavitin, that was an obligation. That's not coming for a sin, so it doesn't go to the dava. That you just destroy it in the sea. Ma'isa shlamim lishlamim. Leftover shlamim goes to shlamim, and Pesach also goes to shlamim. He asked the question. Now, those chachamim in Bavel, they used to say, how do you know? Now, when you bring a korban Pesach in the wrong time, it becomes a shlamim. It's a kosher animal. It becomes a shlamim offering, right? When should you bring a korban Pesach? Any offers? Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach in the afternoon. That's the time to bring the Paschal lamb. Yeah, Erev Pesach in the afternoon, and you eat it at night, from midday till the evening. That's the time to bring the korban Pesach. If you brought it beforehand, it's pasul. However, if you brought it for the sake of a shlamim, it's kosher, because the din is of Pesach when it's in the wrong time. If you had the intention for shlamim, it changes, becomes a shlamim, and it's a kosher korban. So now, where is this learned from? Let's see. So Benayin Shah Pesach Mishtana the Shem Shlamim, that it could possibly change to be a Shlamim and it's kosher. So Hamaloma, it says in the pasuk of Shlamim, Yimin Atzon Karbano, a person brings from the sheep his korban, Zevach Shlamim, he brings a Shlamim, Kol Shu Min Atzon, any animal that comes from the sheep and the goats, korban Pesach, for example, can come from sheep and goats, but Shlamim, if you bring it in the wrong time, it can be a Shlamim offering. Hitivot Ne'asare Oila B'Min Atzon, now an Oila offering, which is completely burnt, of course, that can also come in outside. That can come from sheep. And according to you, then, anything coming from sheep can be a shlamim. So leftover oila money should be shlamim. So he says, no. Dava she'ena ba'ela min atzayin. No. That's talking about something which only comes from sheep. Like korban Pesach, yasa oila she'i ba min abaka. Oila offering can come from cattle as well. So we're not discussing that. Things which are sheep and goats can be a shlamim, but things which are cattle can't be a shlamim. Ha'tivul, they asked, a guilt offering that only comes from sheep, right? And therefore you should say it should be, any extra money should be a shlamim. If it's from the sheep, it's its korban. Something that comes from all types of sheep, that's sheep and goats, like korban Pesach. As opposed to the guilt offering, that only comes from sheep, not from goats. So if you've got leftover money, it does not become a shlamim offering. Now, usually the word min, usually min is lemay, it's to exclude things. Here the word min is telling me to include things, sheep and goats. Now here as well, min lemay, we are excluding. Milt, it's exclusion. You cannot bring a korban Pesach from sheep which are in their second year. It's got to be within the first year. Or milt and it cannot come female. It can only be a male animal. Now, what about the pasuk? The sheep can bring from a guilt offering. Min lemaitu is also coming to exclude. That only comes from sheep. Min, it's not korban Pesach or Osham, but Ribun is learning. Talking about Pesach, the extra hay from the side. Okay. What's he saying? Min is lemait who she'ena bar. You can't bring an asham only from sheep. So again, it's an exclusion. Hativa, they asked a question. Vakasiv, it says, now this is, it says, if you're bringing a korban from your sheep or from the goats for an oil offering, so let's say, Maisa Pesach, you got leftover money from Pesach offering, but oila, maybe it should be brought as an oil offering. Just like you're saying the shlamim can come from sheep or goats, and leftover Pesach, whatever, can come from sheep, can be shlamim, let's say the same with an oil offering. We will change something which is eaten to something else which should be eaten. So Pesach, leftover money, you use a shlamim offering, the owner gets to eat a bit, but it's burnt. However, we're not going to change it to an oila which is completely burnt. We can change something which is kachim kalim, which is lower level holiness, for a similar thing. L'shem kachim kalim. You cannot change to an oila offering which is higher level. L'shem kachim, which is a much higher status. Yeah. Rav Yechon said, Alda Ali Rav Chanina. This matter of Chanina argued in the Chachamim. Rav Chanina said, Dina Namrin, they said, Eina Pesach Mishtan L'Shem Shlamim. They said, you know what, Pesach in the wrong time can't be a Shlamim unless Elohim Kain Shachatai L'Shem Shlamim. They must have had it in mind. You hear that? he's saying they have to shecht it for the sake of shlamim. For the sake of shlamim, that removes it from being a Pesach, makes it a shlamim. But if you shecht it for something else, for an Ayla or something, it's possible. I say, even if you shecht it for the sake of an Ayla, it becomes a shlamim, and it's kosher. Ravina, Tama Rabbi Yochanan, the reason Rabbi Yochanan, if from the sheep is its carbon for shlamim, lezebach, the extra word, shlemach, shlemach, kol shu zebach. For any carbon, you want to shech this carbon Pesach, for anything when it's the wrong time, bar shlamim, it becomes a shlamim. Now, if you shechted it, and we're going to go here, a few more lines. Now, if you slaughter it for another sacrifice, for an Olah offering, but at the time of Shechita, you had a machshava which would puzzle the carbon. You had the wrong thoughts when you did the Shechita. Would that help to change it to shlamim, or would it not help? So let's see, what's the case? Hey Ravina. Shachta, you slaughter it for the sake of an Olah offering. And you're thinking, I'm going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow. Now, usually sprinkling the blood at the wrong time is pigul. Yeah, one who eats it gets kores, right? So he's thinking he's slaughtering for Olah, and he's going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow. That creates a pigul status. What difference is there? You're going to tell me it's still a Korban Pesach or it's a shlamim. But that's possible. Any carbons with his slaughtering, with the intention for the zrika to the sprinkling to be done tomorrow is pigul. So he says no. Of course it's possible. The question is, if you eat a kazayas of it, is he get kasset kares or not? When there's pigul, that you had the intention to do sprinkling at the wrong time, if you eat it, there's kares. If there's extra problems, there's no kares. Kares is only if pigul's the only thing wrong. Remember that from Kodrim? Kares is only if pigul's the only problem. If there's another problem, then the kares excision punishment is not there. So the question is now, are you chayav kares like one who eats pigul, or you're like eating other kachim which is anyway possible? So there's no kares. Pigul is only a carbon where without that pigul it would be kares. Without that problem it would be kares. In Tema you're going to tell me the intention of a wrong carbon removes its Pesach status, it becomes a shlamim status. Then it's like other shlamim, where you have in mind intention to sprinkle the blood tomorrow, which is pigul, and there'll be kares if you eat it. But in time you're going to tell me your thought of carbon puzzle does not help to remove the Pesach status. Then it comes out that it's a Pesach slaughtered in the wrong time, which is a carbon which is puzzle in its own right, even without the chutz money problem, and it'll be puzzle and it will not be pigul. The Gemara doesn't answer the question. Okay, how are we doing? We've already said, I know there's a mincha across the road at 7 o'clock. We'll do a few more lines. A Pesach which is slaughtered lifnei zmanai, right? You made an animal holy a few days before Pesach, and then you went and shechted it on the 14th. You need to shecht it shlai lishmai to remove the Pesach status and make it into shlamim. If you shechted it for a Pesach, it's a Pesach slaughtered for the wrong time, which is possible. Let's see. Lishmai v'shalai lishmai v'shai yimai. Imagine a Pesach not on the 14th. You started slaughtering it for a Pesach, and then you changed your mind while you're slaughtering it for the sake of a shlamim. Do we say the shalai lishma removes the lishma which we had first, and it changes, becomes a shlamim, or not? Since Sha'ama, you said at the time, the end of Shechita, I'm doing it shalai lishma for the sake of shlamim, you've changed it. It's like you started slaughtering normally, and you shechted it, you finished it for shlamim, v'hu kasher, it's kasher. Amalei says, if that's the case, you've removed the Pesach Shechita Kamana, and you made it into shlamim, then I feel a shachta lishmai, even if you shecht it before lishmai for the beginning, for the sake of Pesach, but you had the intention, lizrak dama shalai lishmai, I'm going to sprinkle the blood for shlamim, that we should also say, yasim mishav rishayna, k'shachta lishmai. It's like from the very beginning, you were shechting it, lishmai, but shalai lishmai for both, you finished with shalai lishmai, it's like you're thinking you're going to sprinkle the blood shalai lishmai, and that should be kasha, v'hei kasha. On Rav Abba Mori, he says, Minala, how do you know? If you slaughter it with nothing wrong, with no wrong thoughts, bishtika, and you're going to sprinkle the blood wrong, how do you know it's kasha? Dilma, maybe even if you shecht it b'shtika with no bad thoughts, and I'm going to sprinkle the blood wrongly, and maybe it's possible because you've done in a whole avodah. You know, you did something for the sake of Pesach. Maybe that's it. It's got a Pesach name now, and maybe your thought you have about sprinkling will not remove that Pesach status. Maybe it's not going to help to turn it into a shlamim. You understand? Yeah, you had a thought of sprinkling, but how's that going to change the animal? Okay, I think we will stop here today, Rabbi Sai. Okay.